Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Daniel Midson-Short. Welcome to episode 2 of Self Improvement Saturday. I'm very excited to be here. It's wonderful to have you here with us live, or if you're watching this later, thanks for tuning in. I'm very excited about this format, actually. I've got to say, last week for me was a little bit of a revelation. I really enjoyed the experience of just speaking live on YouTube. I didn't expect that. I've done so many videos over the years, and they tend to be a little bit more prepared and practiced. But in my professional speaking life, I get to do exactly this. I kind of riff, I think of things, and they come out of my mouth as they're coming out. And that's kind of cool. I really actually enjoyed the process, and I got some good feedback, both comments and then offline people saying they enjoyed this format. So I am very excited to be back, and this is definitely something we're going to be continuing over the next couple of months and hopefully years. Is this show called Self Improvement Saturday? Now, as I learned last week, it's important that we have some sort of agenda for the show. So I have a couple of things that I want to talk through today. And as always, I have my little list here. So I will go through this with you and explain what I have in mind for today. We'll probably go for about 30 to 40 minutes today. And the goal here is a couple of things. First of all, I want to give you a couple of life updates, things that are happening for me, because there's been some big developments lately and things I want to share that I'm excited to share the journey with you, which is awesome. I also want to talk about this format and what I'm thinking I want to do moving forward with the channel, because realizing how much I enjoy this, it's changing the way I'm thinking about the channel. And then I want to do a little bit of a deep dive into the concept and the topic of failure, because this is something that I have thought a lot about, I've experienced, I'm sure you have as well in your life. And on my channel in particular, a lot of people have resonated with some of the ideas that I've shared, but there's always more to share. I'm always reading and learning, and I want to share some concepts and experiences that I've had around this idea of failure. So hopefully that sounds like a good show for today. Also at the end, if we do have questions or comments, if you want to type them in the chat, would be amazing to connect with some of you and hear what you have to say or things you'd like to know about, and we can go from there. So that is going to be our format today for Self Improvement Saturday, episode number 2. I'm Daniel. Let's get rolling. All right, so first and foremost, we're going to talk about some life updates, what's happening for me personally and where I'm at. And hello, Mike. Good to see you there. We're going to talk about some life updates and what I've been up to. The biggest life update that's happened for me recently is that I have once again reached the semi-final level of the World Championships of Public Speaking. So for those of you who know me, you know that I'm an avid Toastmaster member, and this goal of winning the World Championship of Public Speaking is something that I've been chasing now for, I think, 7, almost 8 years of my life. And it's a bit of a crazy goal in a lot of ways. It's very audacious because it's a difficult thing to do, but it's also an awesome challenge. And this is my 5th time getting to the semi-final level of the World Championships. It's not an easy feat. You have to win every single level of your contest. This is the 6th, I think the semifinals is the 6th level of the contest. And I was fortunate to go through the judging round, which is the regional round, into the semifinals. And I just found out last week that I made it. So I'm very excited about the chance to compete again. It's obviously a lot of work coming up, which means a lot of speech preparation. It means a lot of thinking, a lot of rehearsing, refining, things that I have to do. But honestly, it's part of what I love to do anyway. I love speaking and sharing ideas, and hopefully getting the chance to compete once again in the finals of the World Championships. This year it is in the Bahamas, which is amazing in itself. So I get to go to this incredible tropical paradise and share some ideas and to stand on a big stage and speak. And who knows, maybe win the whole thing, which is my long-term goal. But the most important thing that I'm realizing is that this year in particular, I'm really enjoying the journey more. I'm noticing that my whole focus isn't so much about winning as it is about enjoying the process, about actually being in the moment, about experiencing when I'm on stage speaking or when I'm writing and I'm refining the speeches. I'm really trying to be present and more in the moment in what I'm doing. And that's coming through a lot in the delivery of the speeches. In years past, I would always get very hung up on the result of what I was trying to do. And as a result, I wouldn't actually usually be happy with the result. But I'm starting to detach from that. Even though I have this long term goal, I'm realizing that the journey is the joy in a lot of ways. And so I'm really leaning into that this year as I prepare for this contest. So I've got about 6 weeks now to prepare, and it's going to be a lot of work on top of what we're doing. But rest assured, I'll still be here every Saturday doing this show. So we will still be around, we'll still be sharing. The other thing that I wanted to update you on was part of this journey is to improve my fitness because I have to fit into some very well tailored suits as part of this contest. And so to do that, I want to make sure that I'm looking my best and I'm feeling my best. It's always better if you're in better shape. So I've been working in the background quite diligently on improving my diet, improving my exercise, and hopefully over the next couple of months, you'll see a thinner version of Daniel starting to appear in these videos, looking a little bit more healthy, more energetic as we go. So those are my two big life updates. I've been focused on the speech contest preparation and then also getting into better shape. But then the other big thing that I've been focused on is my YouTube channel. And as it's growing more and more, I'm starting to think about what I enjoy doing on here just as much as what seems to resonate with people. As I mentioned at the start of this year, I had sort of burnt out a little bit on this goal, this format of delivering speeches. I wasn't enjoying what I was doing. I was putting out content, but I wasn't really enjoying the process of doing it. So I kind of took a step back for a couple of months. There were also a lot of big life changes. But I realized just recently that I need to mix it up a bit. And last week, when I went live for the first time and did the first episode of this show, I came out of that after 30, 40 minutes and I realized, wow, that was a lot of fun. That was awesome. It was amazing to actually just connect with people live, to have a bit of a chat, and to share some ideas in this format. And I realized that maybe this is closer to what I should really be doing more of the time. So the videos that I've created over the years, obviously they have a certain style and they've evolved and changed, but I want to incorporate more of this, I guess, casual or ad lib tone into what I'm doing. And what my thought is as I'm creating these live shows, I'll also start cutting them up into pieces and adding them to my channel for particular sections. So if you want to watch the whole show, you can tune in live or you can watch it, the recording, but I'll also have little vignettes from the show where I think it's valuable and insightful as their own topics. So that's the thought, is to keep practicing and trying out this new live format, connecting with people who are here live, and then also at the same time using the content that I'm creating as actual pieces on my channel as videos. I'll still create other pre-recorded videos here and there, but I'm realizing that for the time being anyway, I'm not getting the joy that I used to out of that practiced, rehearsed type of content. And I think honestly, you can kind of see it in the way I'm delivering in my videos. I'm losing energy a little bit. I'm not quite as present as I would be in the moment right now talking to a live group. So yes, that's my thought moving forward. Obviously, with so much happening in my life with the speech contest and a lot of other things, I'll do my very best to create quality ideas and content and share them. But at the very minimum, we'll get a chance to connect like this every week if you have the time, or you can watch it later. So those are all the life updates. Once again, very grateful to have those of you who are here live, and to also to be able to share this this way. Really, it's a miracle in a sense that we can actually just share live through the internet in this way and connect. So I'm excited. I hope you're excited. And that is my life updates for the time being. Okay, so our next topic is going to be talking about failure, the concept, the experience, the reality of failure in our lives. This is something that I have wrestled with for a long time. And as you can see right behind me, I have a lot of books on my shelf. A lot of those are self-development, psychology, personal development kind of books. And obviously this concept of failure, it comes up a lot. This idea of having to persist, having to overcome obstacles, having to build your character through failure, all those things. Anyone who has read any self-development or self-improvement books has come across this concept. You don't just succeed the first time, you have to persist. It takes many, many times. But I do think that we have a tendency as individuals to trap ourselves with our concepts of failure. We don't see the reality of failure. We see our version of what failure is. And that's what I kind of want to deep dive into today. So I got some notes here I want to talk through. So I think if you think about what the real purpose of failure is, in a lot of respects, it's a guidepost or it's an instruction book in a way of what not to do. So if you think about that, the reality is that whenever we try to do something new in our lives, we try to achieve something, we don't really have the perfect system or process or model in place. We just can't. We don't know what we don't know. And unless we really invest in mentors or teachers or whatever, most of the time we're kind of going to figure it out for ourselves, whatever it is. So, because we don't have that model, the only way that we can really learn is by screwing up, is by failing. And the failures actually give us clues, they give us instructions or advice, or they give us little distinctions that we need in our lives to adjust and to improve and to tweak. Now, you can think of any part of your life where this is true. If you work out in a certain way, say you join a yoga class or you start using weights or whatever, you will find that when you practice it for a couple of weeks, your body starts to give you indications of the weak areas of your system, right? So maybe it's your back or your abs or your legs or whatever. You're like, oh man, that really hurts. In a way, that is your body giving you instructions of what needs work. And it's the same in any part of our lives. If you want to be a good salesperson and you have a lot of rejections, there's something in the rejections that you are causing or that is creating the failure that if you look closely and you really analyze it, very often it will be an instruction of how to do better. So I wanted to share that idea of the real purpose, I believe, of failure is to give us instructions and to give us guidance. But to get that value out of it, we have to have that perspective, because if we fall into the trap of beating ourselves up or feeling like failure is something that we're trying to avoid or that we're scared of, we're never going to learn the instructions and the things that are important to actually progress to the next level. The next thing I wanted to talk about is this idea of why do we fear failure? Very often, I think the fear of failure is it's something that's trained into us. You might have read in psychology books and they say that babies only have two fears. They have the fear of loud noises and they have the fear of falling. The fear of failure is actually conceptual. It's not something that we understand as little children. But as time goes on, especially when we're told no or don't or be careful, and then as you get older, it gets into more kind of nuanced versions of you shouldn't, or do you think that's a good idea, or whatever it is, you start to perceive that making mistakes or having failures are a bad thing. No one really directly says to you, if you fail, life is ruined, or you'll never succeed again. But we start to kind of extrapolate that from all these little instructions that we get, whether it's teachers or parents or peers or just society, media, whatever. We will start to perceive that it is dangerous or it's scary to fail. And this kind of, if you want to call it a meme or a mind virus, starts to permeate in our mind, and we perceive the world in a way where there's success and there's failure. In reality, there is no success, there is no failure, but it actually is just a continuum. There is, in some ways, you're succeeding more, some ways, maybe you're failing more, but there's no definite of either. And you will know this. If you've succeeded in some way in your life, it's not permanent, it's not forever. You still have to get up the next morning and work hard and do what you're doing. And it's the same with failure. If you fail in some way, it's not permanent, it's not forever. You can still get up tomorrow and try again. But we fear the permanence of failure. We think if I do something, if I ask someone out on a date, or I try to make a sale, or I try to achieve something, I try to compete in a contest, for example, if I fail, it is now permanent. And that fear of the permanence, or what it would do to us, or how other people would perceive us, I believe that is what we start to fall into. That is what we start to hold on to, and it starts to limit our desire to grow. So that is another concept that I wanted you to just to understand, is that very often your fears of failure are learned rather than internal. They're actually things that you perceive in the environment. It's kind of like when you learn to drive. Before you learn to drive a car, you don't really have a perception of road rules or what's dangerous or what's safe or anything like that. But as you begin to learn, you start to perceive these things. You notice that you have to drive the speed limit, or you have to check your mirrors, or you have to drive within the lines on the road. And failure is very much the same thing. We start to learn from people around us that you should fear making a mistake, or you should fear stepping out of your comfort zone, or whatever it is. And we follow those examples of other people. I'm not saying that it's always bad to follow other people's advice or examples, but very often their fears and their beliefs are limiting for them, and we start to take them on for ourselves. So this fear of failure is something that I'm always aware of. If I start to fear it, or I start to feel the fear of failure, I say, where did I learn this from? Is it someone who taught me this? Is it society? Is it something that I'm falling into? And then I kind of just let it go a little bit. I say, I have the fear, it's okay, but I'm just going to ride with it, because there is no permanent failure. There's no permanent success. It's on a continuum, and we'll be okay. The next idea I have for you is that you win or you learn. And this is actually something I learned by reading a book by John Kavanagh, who is the coach of Conor McGregor, the UFC fighter. He wrote a book called Win or Learn. And this is the philosophy that he has in his gym with all of his fighters. If you think about MMA or cage fighting, the idea of winning or losing is very definite. You either defeat the opponent or you're defeated. There's no middle ground here most of the time. You're a winner or a loser. But what he actually says is that he teaches his fighters, as they're developing and growing, to think in terms of winning or learning. And this goes back to what I was saying with the first concept, is that the true purpose of failure is to give us instructions, is to give us guidance, is to give us distinctions. When you don't win, you actually have an opportunity to learn. And so this takes away the concept of failure completely, because a win is a win and you celebrate the victory however you do. But a learn is actually a victory as well, because you go up a level in your life. So this is a great thing that I have started to incorporate into everything that I do, is when I do have a failure or a frustration or a setback, I say, okay, I didn't win, but what did I learn? And inevitably, there is something there that you can take away. Another concept that I want to share here, which is kind of a fun one, is this idea of failing up. And this is actually something I learned many years ago from a friend of mine who was a bit of a Casanova, a bit of a ladies' man. He and I used to go out on the town when I was much younger, and he would always be talking to all the women. He'd be charming them, and they'd be laughing and have a good time. And one time I said to him, why are you so good at doing this? Why do you have this gift? And he said, because I'm very good at failing up. And I thought, what does that mean? And he said, I'll show you. And so he said, follow me. And we went for a walk around the bar, and he would walk up to a group of women who were all talking, and he would point at them and he would say, hey, ladies, you don't want to talk to me. And then he would walk away. And then he would go to the next group of women and he would say, hey, excuse me, ladies, you don't want to talk to me. And then he would do it again. And he would go around the bar doing this 4 or 5 times to all the different groups of ladies in there who appeared to be single. And then he would go and take a seat. And he would sit down quite content with himself. And I watched him do this in shock. I thought, what is he doing? But one by one, women from those groups came up to him and they said, what do you mean I don't want to talk to you? Maybe I do want to talk to you. And he said, oh, okay, great. Well, what's your name? And he started talking to them. When I saw him do this the first time, I thought, this is crazy. Why are you forcing yourself to fail straight away? You're actually going up and triggering a rejection. But it's a very good concept when you start to think about it. What he was actually doing was he was failing up. So if you think about it in a social situation, people go out, they want to meet people. A lot of the time they'll just sit back and they'll kind of uncomfortably stare across the room or whatever. And they think, I want to talk to that person, but I better not, because I might get rejected. They might not want to talk to me, whatever. What he did was actually kind of circumvent that or take care of it quickly. He would walk straight over to the person and say to them, you don't want to talk to me. And if they didn't want to talk to him, they didn't. But if they did want to talk to him, they would push back and they'd say, well, maybe I do. And he would start a conversation with them. What he was essentially doing was confronting failure very quickly. And he was doing it kind of in a bulk way. He was going around the bar very quickly, talking to all these groups of women, and he was quickly getting the failures out of the way. And his concept of failing up is a brilliant one in a lot of ways. He always had a great time. All the people enjoyed hanging out with him. And he would enjoy his night much more rather than everyone else who was sitting there looking at someone across the room, hoping to talk to them and never actually doing it. The irony was that by failing up quickly, by confronting his failures, he actually had a lot more success versus the people who would sit back and wait. They would fail because they would never actually take action. And so this is a really clever concept that I learned from him many years ago in a very unpredictable way. But the concept of failing up is one that I've always kept with me. Now, it may not be in the dating realm that you use this. Maybe it is in business. Maybe you need to get a certain number of new clients. So you can just reach out to people who would be potential clients. And you could say to them, I don't know if you need my services right now, but this is what I do. And just see what they say. Now, every 10 that you call, maybe 9 will say, no, we don't. Thank you. And you say, no problem. But then the 1 out of 10 might say, well, actually, what do you do? Tell me a bit more about it. Or maybe we'll need that soon. If you did that 100 times over a month, I guarantee that you would probably get 2 or 3 new clients just from the fact that you reach out, you say to them, you might not want my services right now, but this is what I do. Because most people won't do that. They won't confront the failure directly. They won't fail up. Instead, they'll wait for success to come to them. And as we know, most of the time, success doesn't just arrive. We have to actually go out and chase it. And usually, the chasing involves failing up. Great concept. So thank you to my friend. I hope you're still enjoying your life out there and doing what you do. I always remembered that experience, and it's been very valuable in many areas of my life. The last thing that I want to share with you is that failure is formative. And this is something that I have learned over many years, is that when you have a failure or a setback or a frustration, or you feel overwhelmed in life, inside of you, character is forming. It doesn't feel like it at the time. It actually feels like pain. It feels like discouragement. It feels like embarrassment or rejection. But that pain is actually causing a resistance, which is making you stronger. It's forming you. And if I go back to the gym analogy, this is a good way to explain it. When a bodybuilder or someone who wants to get in shape wants to improve their physique, build more muscle, what they actually do is they work a muscle until it gets to what they call failure. They keep doing it. And you may have done this in your life where you're working out and then suddenly you just can't do any more reps. That is the feeling of the muscle failing. It's actually run out of energy and it doesn't have any more strength and ability to do it. What is happening is the muscle fibers are actually tearing, which sounds pretty crazy, but that's what's happening inside of the muscle there. And what happens is when you then rest, the muscle fibers reform and they grow stronger. What's happening during that resistance is, and that failing process is that you're forming more muscle, more strength. It's the exact same thing in your life when you want to succeed in some way, but you fail. The character that you're building as a result of that is slowly forming under the surface. Every time I have had a big setback or a failure in my life, and I've talked about a lot of them on YouTube, a divorce, a failed business, I've failed a lot in my speech contests, different areas of my life. Those frustrations have always led to formation of more character. And that's really crucial to remember. If you look at your own life, I bet there's things where you failed and you felt like at the time, I can't overcome this. I don't know what to do. How am I going to come back from this? But you did, and you actually came back stronger than you thought you would. That's because the failure is creating foundation. It's forming you. And so whatever it is that you're going through right now, if you are going through a failure in your life or a setback or an embarrassment or a frustration, remember that that feeling is actually forming you. It's building you stronger than you were. So those are all my ideas about failure. I have a couple of other videos on my YouTube channel where I talk about this concept as well in different ways. But those are things that I always try to keep in mind. And if I do get into a phase where I'm fearing failure or I'm feeling like a failure, I always remember those different things, that it does give me instructions. It does give me guidance if I tune into it, that the fear of failure is just something that I have learned usually from other people and that I can choose to just let go of and realize that it's not real. I remember the concept of failing up. The sooner I confront the failures, the sooner I'm likely to get the success I want. And then the last thing is that failure forms you. It actually builds the strength, it builds the development inside of you, and it makes you into a better person over the long term. So there we go. That's a little deep dive into failure. Hope that was beneficial for you. And I'm looking in the chat here and I can see that there's a couple of comments. These are our first comments in episode 2. So I'm excited to have you all here. So thank you, Mike, for the congratulations on the contest result. Yes, I'm very excited, my friend, to go back. I'll have to tell you about it when we get together. It's a journey, my friend, as you know. So year number 6 or 7, I think it is. So we'll see how we go. But yeah, great to have you here, my friend. We've got Yogendra. You said some business advice, please. When to pivot in business? Oh my goodness. Okay, this is a this is a big topic. I don't know if we can cover it completely while we're talking here, and I don't know if you can write some more context in the chat here, but I can give you my thoughts on when to pivot. I would say what I have learned in business, and it's not just in business, it can be in passions and hobbies or whatever, is that when you feel like the value is not there anymore, whether it's the internal value that you're feeling from the enjoyment or the transactional value that you're giving to someone else, if that's starting to fade or that's not there anymore, that is probably a time to look at pivoting. Very often, if we go at a high level, markets change, businesses change. We see that all the time. And the type of value that people want starts to change. And so if you get stuck in the model of how you used to think about your business, maybe you started with one particular product or service or way of doing something, you might find that the reason it's not succeeding is because people are not valuing that thing or that service as much as they used to. So it's up to you as a business owner or a creator, whatever it is in your life, to think about, okay, what do people value? And if you look at your particular customers, they'll probably tell you, usually it's pain points that you can solve, or it's challenges or problems that they have. If you can tune into those and you can say, okay, what are the pain points? What are the problems that they have? How can I solve those for those people? That's where the value is for you as a business person and as an entrepreneur or a creator or whatever you are. So it's usually time to pivot when you realize that the value is no longer there. And this happens more often than we realize. If you think about technology, right? Think about, I don't know, like the iPhone 7, let's say. The iPhone 7 has a lot less value today than it did when it was launched 7 years ago, whenever it was, because there's many new iterations of the phone since then. So in a way, Apple kind of it obsoletes itself by making newer, more valuable things. But that's a pivot in their own business. They're choosing to improve and to change and to create more value. So the old version of what they do actually has a lot less value than it did in the days when it was first created. Probably the same with your business. Whatever it is you're doing right now, if you're not succeeding in the way you'd like to, it's probably because the value of what you're offering to the market isn't actually there as much as you once thought it was or you perceived it was. And it might come down to asking some of your customers or people that you've worked with, what was it that made you buy what I do? What was it that made you want to actually transact with me? And they'll tell you what the value is if you listen. And then figure out how you can add new value. And sometimes it's just a tweak. Sometimes it's a new product, service, or offering. Sometimes it's a completely different world that you go into. But there is value there if you look for it and you keep thinking of it and keep thinking of what is it that my customers value and how can I give that to them? And that is the best pivot that I can offer you. Hope that's useful for you. And thank you for the question. That's a great one. And I wish you the very best in your business. Fuchsia Rose, hello there. Good to see you. You said that's an interesting way of looking at it. I'm assuming that's talking about failure. So hopefully that was insightful for you as well. Yes, the topic of failure is one that we all could talk about for years, I'm sure. And it's definitely something that we all tackle in our own ways in our lives. And I have learned that a lot of the problem is the way that we approach it. So once you figure out your own system or method of overcoming failure or confronting it or moving past it, I find that life gets a lot easier. So thank you, guys. That's an amazing thing to have a couple of comments there in the chat. One thing I would love to ask too, for those who are watching this video later, is to list in the chat some concepts or ideas that you have used to overcome failures in your life. What's the mindset? What's the practice? What's the methodology that has actually helped you to overcome failure in your own life? All of us have our unique take on this. I just shared mine, but I'm sure you have your own as well, and they're just as valuable. And I'm sure the audience would love to hear about them. Well, my friends, that was everything I had for today. We are at 29 minutes, so I'm a little more timely than last week. I'm getting the hang of this live streaming thing. As I said at the beginning of the show, this is a real thrill for me. I'm very excited to be venturing in this new format of Self Improvement Saturday. I think we've got some great things here. It's wonderful to have people here live. I can see you all there. Hello. And for those of you who've commented in the chat and joined in, it's just a privilege to have you here as well. So, as we get to the end of this episode, I will be back next week, Saturday morning, 9 a.m. Pacific time. I'm here in California. I hope you can join us live, or you can watch this when you get some time. As I mentioned, I will clip certain sections of these live streams moving forward, and we will look forward to growing and developing together. So, to end today, as I always say, thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. And as always, thank you for improving yourself.